I'm Emma, a certified dog trainer.
And I'm Kirsten, a certified dog behavior consultant.
And this is Dog Chats. Join us as we chat about dog behavior, having fun with your dogs, and building relationships. We will offer practical advice and a bit of humor.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 25. This feels big, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it feels significant.
Or anniversary.
Yeah. So Emma and I are going to talk a little bit about environment today.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so important. In fact, when we think about how we look at a dog in terms of perspective, I'm always considering the learning, the environment, the genes, and the self, that individual dog in front of you. And the environment, that's a quarter of what we can do to understand the dog and modify the environment for successful change. Yeah. So I want to start with a story, because I have a client who, without the help of any trainer or behavior consultant, figured out that modifying their home environment was what their dog needed. Oh. So Brune, it was a 1-year-old Great Dane, and they adopted her from a shelter. Didn't really know anything about her background. I think she was found on the street in the shelter a short time, and they brought her home to their apartment in San Francisco. And she didn't know how to walk upstairs, and it seemed as if she had never seen a dog or a car or a person. She was completely overwhelmed. So they had done some training, and what they realized was this was beyond training, because she was so overstimulated that what they had to do was change the environment. So they did things like they put cardboard on the windows, because if they had the curtains, she's a 1-year-old Great Dane, she just moved them. They put a potty pad on the roof so that she wasn't having to go out in the night to the streets with all the traffic. And you can imagine how giant that. He built a AstroTurf tray.
He had a big area.
A big area, yeah. But just doing that, and then eventually they moved to a place that had a yard, even though it was a little yard, because she was having such a hard time being successful. And he worked with several trainers, and he read all these books and was doing everything right. But it wasn't until they took away a lot of that environmental stimulation, the physical environment changed, and the social environment, meaning she wasn't having to deal with people in the street every day. She could take a breath and learn, and she just became a different dog.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. Environment is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
And we don't think about it enough. People call you in to train their dog, and they think, oh, if we just do a sit or a touch or a disengagement game, that's what the dog needs. But looking at the environment in which they're in is so important to see, are they comfortable? What has changed?
Yeah. When I think about my dog Neve, she was living with an unhoused person on the streets for 2 years. So she went from having this huge territory in Richmond, but really no place that was her own, to then living in a very small crate in a shelter. Again, not really a place of her own, to my house. And so by the time she was 3 years old, she was so extraordinarily territorial, because she'd never had that. And she was like, it's my place.
Look at this.
And
I can do this now.
I could do that. Yeah, and it took a little time. But I think that was because it was just a completely different world for her. And she wasn't going to let that go.
No. And it is interesting. You see shelter dogs that sometimes haven't just been socialized to the world, and the environment, it changes slightly.
Yeah.
And they really can't handle it. Like Chance, my previous dog, was very much like that. He was okay if he knew his surroundings, but if you change that, then everything changed for him. The behavior we were seeing was a dog shaking in the corner, not being able to cope, and then you would bring him home 5 minutes later and he'd be wagging his tail running around the yard. Yeah. Like, it just was too much there.
Right.
We were talking about candles for a little bit before our episode, and we might have mentioned it in another episode, a lovely way of looking at things like, does your dog have too many candles? And how can we quench some of those candles so your dog can
cool down.
That's a good way.
Yeah,
cool down, and there's less going on, and they're able to cope, just like us. I mean, like, I tend to be slightly introverted, and if I'm overwhelmed, like if there's too much coming at me all day long, I need that quiet time to just try and reset. Otherwise, there's just no learning at all for me.
Yeah. And that, we talk about that physical environment, the building, and then there's the social environment, which for your dogs, it's the conspecifics, the other dogs in the home or the world, or the other people, or the dog walker, or the vet. So sometimes we forget about that constantly dynamic changing social environment And my dog Dakota, that was so hard for her to have like teenage girls coming in the house and then screaming and leaving. And lockdown was the happiest time of her life.
Oh, it was the happiest time of my life too.
Yeah, and we had tried so much behavior mod before that to no effect. And the best behavior mod was during lockdown when no one was over. She was finally getting like back to her homeostasis, and then she'd see people on Zoom and come over. And so that was the first time she could be by a person under threshold.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah, and she
I can
learned
relate.
about it.
I
Yeah.
actually really love doing Zoom.
Yeah.
It just gave me sort of like not overwhelmed by the world, and I was able to focus on just being there in a space that was very comfortable for me.
Yeah.
So I relate.
And so many people know that about themselves, but I think they have this cultural idea of dogs are hypersocial and love all people and dogs.
Yeah. And that expectation that like we're going for a walk. This is what we're going to do today. It's
Right.
fantastic. We're going to the beach. We're then going to go up for a hike,
And a
then
soccer
we're going to
game.
stop off for lunch.
And go to the brewery.
Yeah, and for some dogs, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
They're fine with it. But for others, we may see signs that it is too much. So, what are those signs that we see that the environment is becoming too much for our dogs?
Yeah, I mean, some dogs I think it's hard to know because they're shut down. So those are the dogs that are being really quiet and coming into themselves and maybe not having an outward appearance of their stress. And I see a lot of dogs out at restaurants completely shut down. And the people are like, oh, look how good and calm my dog is. And I'm looking at the poor dog. You can see the whale eye, the tail's tucked, the mouth is closed. The dog's just like, get me out of here.
Yeah, I need to go home. Yeah.
But if they're not calm and shut down, what's that look like?
You could see your dogs being a little bit more reactive.
Yeah.
They're suddenly overwhelmed and they bark at somebody that they normally wouldn't do if they were in an environment that they were really comfortable in.
It's so true. Yeah. Yeah, like one of my clients talks about the dog loves grandma. But if grandma's coming over in the evening when the dog's already tired and been juggling the social environment of small kids all day, the dog doesn't want anything to do with grandma at that point. But if grandma comes in the morning and grandma takes him out and they go for a walk, it's a completely different experience.
Yeah.
So how can we help our dogs?
Well, if it's like in my case, perchance I went and bought a travel trailer.
Nice.
So that his environment would always be the same
Yeah.
inside, and then all that would change was outside.
Yeah, yeah.
So we could travel with him, because otherwise it would have been just too hard. Hotels would have been really difficult. So the environment inside looked solid, steady, always the same.
Nice.
And then he just had to cope with being outside, which he did very well because he wasn't overloaded. And I would just watch then. I think really important to watch what he could do and not push him too much. And say, yes, I want to bring him into the city. If he can't do that, then just leave him at home.
Yeah.
That's
so true.
the best thing for him. It would be much better for him to spend time at home than be out and just stress the whole time, so that I could have him with me.
Right, right. And then we have the dogs on the other spectrum who need so much mental stimulation that they're bored.
Yes,
You know?
the environment at home is
So boring. And
boring.
Yeah, I have an older client, and I'm asking her to try to just get the dog out of the house twice a week because she can't walk, and the dog is so bored. And when we have done it and met at like an empty movie theater parking lot, the dog's thrilled just to have that change.
We love enrichment, right? So that's something you can do to change the environment inside your house.
Yeah.
And it could work for both dogs we're talking about, is just set up something new and novel, not overwhelming. Because
Yeah.
I do notice that dogs, especially in the shelter, dogs that are a little shut down already, that too much stuff
Yeah.
in the environment is overwhelming. So you don't put out every puzzle you ever had on the floor for those dogs. You just start slow, maybe with just one thing. But then the dog that's finding it boring to be at home, maybe you create a whole room
Yeah.
of fun stuff to explore.
Yeah, and people could look back on our Wintery Games episodes.
Yes, for all that
Yeah.
fun stuff.
But it might be just taking a toilet paper tube and putting a couple treats in it and folding it in half and hiding it. So now the dog is going to go find that, gets to rip it apart.
Yeah.
So making the environment more enriching in that way and giving the dog a sense of purpose.
So what about this, right? So Kiva, during COVID lockdown, when we weren't able to meet other dogs, and I've spoken about this before, has become slightly reactive when she sees particular dogs in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right? She knows where all the patterns are.
Yeah.
She knows where the squirrels are. She knows where all the dogs live.
Yeah.
She goes out there into that environment going,
Game on.
I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready. We're going to turn the corner. That's where that dog lives. I know he barks at me and I kind of like it, so I'm going to bark back.
Yeah.
I know there's a squirrel somewhere here because it's Squirrel Alley, so I know we're going to see it somewhere. And the reason why I'm bringing her up is I think it's really interesting to me to see when I change her environment, she doesn't have that reactivity.
Yep.
I think that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So if I brought her to the beach, it wouldn't show up. If I brought her to Chrissy Field in the city and walked with dogs all around me, I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
It has created itself from the environment.
Her territory.
Yeah.
Because, and I may have already said this on another podcast, but I always imagine if I was walking down Haight Street in San Francisco and somebody opened a window and yelled some mean things at me, I'd be like, oh, well, there's a person who's got some issues yelling at me out the window, and I'd keep walking, right?
Yes.
But if I'm on my street and my neighbor Buzz opens his window and yells at me and his dog Cody's barking at me, I'm horrified. And then every time I walk by his house, I'm going to be thinking, oh gosh, is Buzz going to open the window and yell at me? Yeah. So I'm so much more aware of my social environment in my neighborhood.
And your expectations of that environment versus going someplace else that you're not so familiar and things aren't going to jump out at you. Or they're going to jump out at you, but you're not expecting them.
Yeah. And I would say I am more reactive in certain places. Like I was in Costco the other day and totally stressed. It was crowded. I don't know what I was thinking. And it was like before the holiday weekend, right? Like, so it's crowded and there's people got the big carts and I was trying to get through somewhere and I was just like much more expressive probably than I would have been if I went there on a Monday morning and I was
where it was nice and quiet and you could get through. It's good to note down stuff to see where you're seeing it and stuff like that so you can kind of see if it's related to where you live. But what would you recommend for dogs? The arousal level within their neighborhood is higher than maybe it would be somewhere else. What would you recommend for them?
Interesting, because a couple years ago, I would have said, put your dog in a car, drive 5 to 10 minutes, and walk somewhere new. Because to your point, it's almost always better.
Yes.
But here's the thing. I have 3 reactive dogs. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
it's too much time.
Instead, I change the way I think. I know that there's going to be more activity in the neighborhood.
Yes.
And when they react, instead of being embarrassed, because imagine the dog trainers got reactive dogs.
We know that.
I love to say something like, oh, she's having big feelings today, or oh, he's got a lot to say, or pretty funny, the dog trainer's dog's barking and lunging. I mean, really, like I've just come to terms with that.
Yeah.
And that's my choice. I can put the dog in the car and drive 5 minutes to the golf course, and they're totally different.
Yes.
Or I can just say, well, there's going to be some big feelings.
And I like to, sometimes because I have 2 of them.
True.
So again, that's the social environment, right? So the little guy will only react if the big girl does, right?
Yeah, so true.
So walking them separately for me can give me peace.
Yeah.
I walk him and I know we're not going to get anything.
Yeah.
He's just going to be happy just going off to sniff. If he sees another dog, he might go, oh.
Yeah.
And I'll go, it's none of your business, and off we go. And then I know with Kiva, I can help her.
Yeah.
We can maneuver through those areas when I just have hers. That would be my change in what the environment looks like.
I love that. And that's usually what I recommend. Yeah. I, of course, don't listen to my own advice.
I know. Well, I would like to take them for a drive every day. But, we all live lives with other stuff going on.
But I mean, even walking separately, that's so good. Because I'm telling people constantly, walk them separately.
Yeah.
But that would be 4 walks for me.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. I plan it. Or here's another thing I like to do is I go to someplace that has lots of space. So that if I walk both of them, that environment will be good, but we have some distance as well.
Love that.
From other dogs.
Love that.
Yeah. So what if you had a party in your house?
That's funny. We are so in sync. I was thinking about that because in my 4 dogs all so different with how we're going to modify the environment. And I think about like when I was young and super into training, and I worked really hard to get my labs to be on the bed when the doorbell rang. And they were like shaking. They're like, we're in our place. And you release them and they like, boom, they jump on everybody anyway. Like I spent hours doing that. And then I had a baby. And I was like, I'm going to just put him behind a baby gate. And it was so much better. Like I had friends before that who didn't want to come to my house because they were charged. And so something like that, like just setting up that off-duty hack, having a baby gate, practicing that. And even if it's 5 minutes as the people are coming in and waiting till they get a drink and sit down and letting them out, that has been life-changing for me. Or putting them on a tie-down. Or Neve girl has to be in her crate because she'll scream bloody murder if she sees the person and doesn't get to say hi and bite them on the ankles. It's figuring out how to modify your environment so that they're calm enough when guests are coming.
We call that management too.
Yes.
We're talking about environment today, which is really what it is, but you'd also hear us say management for a lot of this because we're managing the environment.
And how many of your clients are dog trainers?
None.
None.
Yeah.
So that like we can't expect our clients to do some 20-hour protocol
Yes.
of go to your mat and hold that when the doorbell rings. So that's where the management, I think, is so nice for them.
And especially with puppies.
Yeah.
How can you set it up so that your dog is successful and you're successful as well, and you're just changing the environment to work for you?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like Dakota and Neve, I call them neighborhood watch when they love to sit in the second story window and bark. And I only let them do that certain times if I'm home and I stop them. But that could be a quick fix. I could put window film up there and probably have the fan going, and it would be a different thing. But instead, I don't know why I haven't done that because I'm lazy, even though I tell people to do that all week long. Instead, I have a baby gate so they can only go upstairs when I'm home.
There you go.
So if they start going crazy.
Here's the thing, too, I want to say to that is you're doing what you need to do for it to work for you.
Yep.
Too.
Yeah.
You don't have to do all the things.
Yeah.
You just have to do the things that help you to live a great life together.
Yeah.
Right?
And that quick fix is just so much better than me getting frustrated.
Yeah.
So what about thinking about when a puppy is born or a dog is experiencing like these different environments? I think about like a puppy could be born in a shelter. It could be born on the streets. It could be born at a breeder.
Yeah.
It could be born in a family home.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? How does that affect? Because you know the puppies.
Well, even when they're with their mom, maybe at a breeder or at the shelter, and they're with their siblings perhaps, even that transition to a home,
Yeah.
that's where I have lots of compassion for the puppy.
Yeah,
You know, right?
yeah.
We need to give your puppy a little bit of a chance to understand the new environment because they were bonded with their siblings, their mom was there, everything looked safe.
Yeah.
And now it's like, wow. And we all know when puppies come into our homes, we want to cuddle and love on them. And you can only imagine from their perspective what it must be like to be in a safe place.
Yeah.
And then just being thrown out into something else, car journeys, new smells, new environments, sleeping on their own.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So I really feel for the puppy. I do feel for the people trying to get their sleep those first couple of nights. But that environmental change, and saying that, the people have environmental change too, because suddenly they have a puppy in their house that changes that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just thinking about like the physical and social environment that a puppy is raised in.
How does that affect?
How does that affect long-term, social development?
Well, it's interesting because I see shelter puppies and I see ones that have come from breeders or maybe a rescue where the mom was there. So
and
I kind of see
puppy mills
it.
too, probably.
And sometimes puppy mills are the saddest because sometimes those puppies find it hard to adapt. Mm-hmm. But puppies from shelters, like right now I have a puppy from a breeder and a puppy from a shelter, and they're both awesome. They're both resilient, and I see a little shyness in one of them, but then within 2 minutes they've adapted.
Yeah, good.
So that's what you're looking for, is that adapting. And it was adapting to the environment because it was adapting to me that I had just come into that space.
Yep.
And then they went, okay, give me a minute. Okay, now I can do it.
I love that because I recently had a client tell me they were going to get a puppy from a breeder because they really wanted to ensure that it had a good start. And afterwards I thought, it's hard to know. Don't know. You don't know. And it doesn't mean that it coming from a shelter is a bad start.
Yeah. It does not mean that at all.
Yeah.
Do your research. I have shelter puppies. You have shelter puppies.
Yep.
Right? And they are awesome and wonderful. And then the dogs that I see from the breeders right now, the ones I'm seeing are super as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love this. It's just that plasticity. It doesn't mean that because the dog had this environment for the first couple of weeks, it's going to
Yes.
be this type of dog.
Yeah.
So you have so much control over your own environment and your own enrichment and what you can modify socially.
Yep.
So
I think puppies in the shelter sometimes have a lot more
yeah,
resilience.
well, they've been
Because-
exposed to a lot of people
Yeah.
and other dogs.
Yeah. And they're adapting to that change. And the shelters have lots of volunteers. Well, I should say out here, we are lucky, has volunteers that gets those puppies out and they get attention and looked after their health.
Yeah, and the foster system can be really wonderful
Can
too.
be really good.
Yeah.
Both, it really depends on the puppy and not necessarily where they came from. Some of that is genetics, right? Who the mom and the dad were, and
Yeah, and their personality. I mean, I think
Yes.
about Charlie and Dakota, litter mates, and they probably had different dog daddies, but Dakota has absolutely no environmental fears. That to the point where when I did the key test and threw the keys in the pen,
Yes.
the old school test, have I told you this? Dakota charged the keys and attacked them. You're not supposed to choose that puppy. Charlie ran so hard to the corner of the pen, he moved the pen.
no.
And then the other puppies are like in the middle, like, oh, okay, now it's safe. We'll check out the keys. And so that's, the spectrum with litter mates.
And what happens when the environment changes?
Yeah, keys came in there.
So, what do we want people to take away from this episode? For me, I think I want people to stop for a moment and maybe this next week, after you listen to this episode, take a look at what happens when your dogs are in different environments.
Yeah. I want to empower people because, to our point, they're not dog trainers, most of our clients, but you can make these subtle shifts by putting on a fan or closing the blinds or playing talk radio or putting the dog in another room with a bone when people first come in. There's so many
Or
things
get
you
in
can
your
do.
car and go someplace else.
Get in your car or buy a new house. So there's so much we can do. I think sometimes people feel like, well, this is the dog I got, and that's that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's a lot besides training that we can do to help support them.
And I think sometimes it can be easier. I don't think people
I
give that
agree.
enough. When you say manage it, put up a baby gate, they're
Yeah.
like, well, that's not really, but yes, it is.
Yeah,
Because we're changing and we're not allowing rehearsal,
exactly.
right,
Yep.
of things that aren't good in the environment for the dog.
Yeah. Or today I was at a client and the dog is stealing food off the baby's high chair.
Ooh,
They
good.
wanted to work on that. And I was like, well, let's just pop the dog on a leash on the couch.
Yes.
Or put him outside.
That's bonding.
And they were like, oh, that's wonderful. We can do that. They're so tired.
Yes. They're like, oh my gosh,
Was that we could just put them outside? I was like, absolutely.
I think that's it, that people think that our dogs need to be doing everything we're doing, and sometimes we have to stop and say, is the dog enjoying this environment or not?
And just thinking about environment and our amazing conversation with Dr. Christie about Compassion Without Borders last episode, and to her point, how the dogs that come from the landfill are special because they are the dogs that are bonded with people on their own, right? They are resilient. They are pro-social. They're really, really special dogs. And when she brings those dogs back to families here, because they've had this very rich, vibrant life, even though they're struggling and they could be sick and there's challenges, they've had so much exposure to people and other dogs. I find that really interesting, how their home environment has really affected their personality.
Yeah.
And made them just lovely housemates.
We hope this gives you some thought to think about it just a little differently on how you look at the environment and your dog.
Yeah, and from the dog's perspective. You might even lay down on the floor at your dog's height and look around and think,
see what it looks like.
yeah, have somebody walk
yeah.
towards you. And
Yeah. We would love to hear about your thoughts on this. So you can join us on Instagram or just send us an email. We would just love to hear a little bit about what you've noticed with your dogs, because that's really what we want to have, is awareness to what we're seeing and then what we could change that would make it really easy to make it better for everyone.
yeah, we're
Dog
really
person.
just trying to think about well-being. How can we improve our dog's well-being?
Mm-hmm.
And considering their environment and sometimes modifying the environment is just a quick, easy way to do that.
Yeah. All right. Till next time. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in today, and hope you'll join us for our next episode. You can reach Emma at
ecdogtraining.com or on Instagram at ecdog_training, and Kirsten at
kwhappydogs.com or on Facebook at kwhappydogs. Don't forget to hit subscribe. See you next time.